Welcome back to our channel, that is AI next generation. In this particular video we are going to focus on function in the Python. So already we have seen in the previous video of the Python, that's loops in the Python, for loop, while loop, the break statement, the continue statement, and different type of data types like list, tuples, dictionary, sets, strings. Okay, so now this particular video we are going to focus on function. So why we are going to use function in the Python? So first of all, I will give you the theoretical part of the function, why we are going to use Python for the function for the Python. Basically, whenever you are just writing something logic in your code, whenever you are just building some application, or whenever you are just doing some coding that's related to the model building in AI, so you are just writing some logic. That particular logic is repeated after, you can just say, in the particular 200 lines of the code, you are just repeating 5 times that similar kind of logic. Means you are just writing 7 to 8 line or 10 lines per of whenever that particular logic is coming. So you need to avoid this thing. To avoid the repetition of the code, you are going to use the function, because once you will create the function, that logic you will just create, at that time you have to just call that particular function to implement. So there will be the plus point to use of the function is you are able to decrease the number of line of the code. The number of line of the code will be the decrease, because the logic you will just write once only, that you will create the function for that. And whenever you want to implement that particular logic in the function, in the particular coding, so what you have to call, you have to just call that particular function. That's it. That is really simple. So you want to decrease the line of the code, you want to make more generalized model, so generalized coding, so everything, it depends upon the how you are just creating the logic, and it depends upon which particular function you want to create. Okay, so first of all, I want to explain you about the function in the Python. Already I have just given you the theoretical part, so why we are going to use the function. So first of all, if you are going to more depth in the function, so when you how to create a function, the first keyword to create a function is a def. This is the syntax. Here you are just writing def. Def means you are just creating the particular function. You are just saying to the Python interpreter that you are just creating a function, and then after you have to give the function name. This is the function name. It can be anything. Okay, and then after you have to pass the parameter, the number of parameters, how many parameter you want to pass, A, B, C, D, anything. Okay, and then after you have to just give this will be the body of the function. In this body you have to write the logic. Okay, so if you are just writing, suppose the logic like A plus B plus C something, I'm just writing the random. Okay, so what you are just writing here, A plus B plus C, clear, and you want to return this one, D. So the thing is that whenever you are just creating a function, you have to return that particular value, because you don't want to print, you want to return. Means whenever you are just calling this function, this particular function returning something. If you want to print this one, let me just give you the difference between the return and the print. Everyone get confused in this. So whenever you are going to return this thing, means you are just returning some value from this function. Means whenever you are just calling the function, you are just returning something from that. But whenever you are just writing print D, it will not return anything. It will only print what the output you are just getting. You are just taking this one. Suppose you are just writing print D, suppose. Okay, so what you are just writing here, this particular print D, and then after you are just writing for the function name, and then after you are just writing 1 comma 2 comma 3. Okay, so now what it will give you, it will give you the addition of 1 comma 2 comma 3. Okay, so that is basically a 6. So you are just getting the print statement. Okay, so this is the function you are just getting, that is the print statement. And the next thing what you are just doing here, whenever you want to return this particular value D, so what, in the place of print you want to return D, so what will get the answer? Now you are able to see, you will get again the 6, but you can store this thing in a variable. If you want to store this thing, suppose in this variable, so now A will holding that particular value. Means you can just see whenever you will plot, so A holds that particular value, that is the 6, that is returned by that particular function. But this thing you can't do with the help of print. Print means you are just printing that statement, you are printing the logic, what you are just getting the output. That's clear. So whenever you are just creating the function and you want to return something, okay, so that just create the particular function, that just write the return. Okay, so this was the syntax of the function, and how to write the some code of the function, and what do you mean by print and what do you mean by return. I think it is clear to you. Then we are going to move to the forward, that there are four type of parameter. Whenever you want to pass the parameter, you can use the four type of parameter. Okay, so one parameter you can just take, that is a required argument. This is the required, the first you are going to see required argument. This is the number of argument you have to pass, the number of parameter whenever you are just passing this ABC. Now we have passed ABC as a required argument. I will explain you in detail. And then the second thing is basically your default argument. Okay, so this is your default argument, you can also pass. I will go in more detail. Then after there is a args and coargs. Okay, so I will explain you args and keywords arguments, okay, and label based arguments. These two things I will explain you in the next class, next video. Okay, keywords argument. Okay, so basically the in this particular video we are going to see required argument and default argument. That is really simple. And for the keywords argument, and means you don't know how many numbers of parameter you want to pass in the particular function. At that time you are going for the args and the coargs, that we are going to see in more detail in the next video. But focus on this video, that is a required argument and default argument. So what do you mean by required and default argument? Okay, so whenever suppose you are just creating a simple function, that is the you are just creating of add function. I'm just creating the very easy example, that you are just passing one a as a required argument, b also. So what do you mean by a and b? So whenever you want to print this one, you want to just return a plus b, that's it. Okay, so whenever you are just calling this function, to call any function you have to write this one. Okay, before I'm just saying, whenever you are just calling any function you have to just write this one, and then after you have to pass the parameter what you have just passed. If you are not calling this function, it will just give you the location where the particular add function it is. If you are just writing this, you are just printing this one, it will just give you the function and their location of that, where the function has been created, the location of that in the memory. Okay, but whenever you want to call this particular function, you want to implement this function, then after here you have to pass the value of a comma b. Okay, that is called a required argument. Required argument means you must have to pass. If you are not passing the value, it will just give you the error. Means it will say you have to pass two particular argument, okay, two missing argument, that is a comma b. They are called as a required positional argument. Clear? Means you have to pass this particular argument. So you can just pass 10 comma, even you are just not passing any value for the b, it will also display the error, because there is one missing value of the b. So you have to pass one for the a argument also and for the b argument also. Clear? So it is returning the addition of a plus b, that is a 12. Clear? So this was about the required argument. Required argument means the particular argument you have to pass in the particular function. Then we are just moving for the default argument. What do you mean by default argument? If you are just getting the function of subtraction, so here you are just passing by default some value, that is a value as a 12 and b value as a, you are just passing something 10. Clear? So what you are just passing, they are called a default argument. Why? Because you are just creating the function and you are just passing by default value. Okay, you are just passing by default value of a as a 12 and by default value of b as a 10. So what you are just saying, whenever you are just calling this function without passing any parameter, it will just give you, it will take by default value as 12 and 10. So whenever you are just running this one, you are getting as a 2, because by default argument it has been taken by 12 by 10. But what you have just, whenever you are just creating a function, but whenever you don't want a value as a 12, you want a value as a, suppose you want a value as a something that is a 20. Okay, you can pass this one. Now a value will become 20, but you are not passing for the v value, then for the default value will be the 10. So it's really easy, but still I'm just explaining this thing. So you are just creating a function that is a subtraction function, you are just passing the two default argument, that is a default value you are just passing as 12 and the b default value you are just passing is as 10. So whenever you are just calling any function, this subtraction function of default argument, default parameter you are just passing, so it can will, if you are not passing, you are just calling the function that is a sub and you are not passing the parameter for that, means by default the value will be taken. But still you can just take your values. If you don't want any default value, you want a value as a 20 but you want to take v value as a default, even you can just do this thing. Clear? Even you can just change the v value as 18. Okay, but it will not going to substitute this thing, you are just going for this particular function. Okay, the next function, those who are just calling this one, again you are just calling sub, so it will again take the default argument. So you are only for you are the here, you are just calling for yourself as a 20 and b as a 18, but you are not changing the a and b value as here. Okay, don't be confused in this. Means you are writing a 20 means you are just changing the position a equal to 20. That's not a case. Clear? So it will be like default value is set, that is a 12 and 10. That's it. If you are again you are calling subtraction, you are getting 2, because by default value you are getting as a 12 and 10. Clear? And the third thing is that you can even use the required argument and default argument in the same place. You can just write some multiplication, you are just first parameter you are just passing required, and the second parameter you are just passing default. Clear? So you can just do this thing. If you want to take both required argument, default argument, you can just do a into b, you are just returning. And if you want to return this thing, then here you have to pass the value of a, that is a required, but b is not required, b is a optional. Either you can just pass the value of b, or you want to take the default value of the b. Clear? So what you're just saying, you are just passing a value as a 10. Now you can just say 10 into 5, you are just getting as a 50. Clear? So it's not compulsory that you have to pass the b value, because b value is a default value. Even you can just change the value of b as a 10 for now. Okay, so you can just do this all things. So every time whenever you are just using, every time you have to pass first of all the required argument, then followed by the default argument. If you are going to pass this way, so it will give you the error, because here basically you have to, every time you have to pass the required argument as first as compared to the default argument. Just remember this thing, which default argument you are just passing, just pass first one. Then after you can which required argument you want to pass, you have to pass the first one, and then after you have to follow by the default argument. Clear? I think this was really easy for you. This was about the required argument, this was about the default argument, and this was about the how to use the default argument and required argument both in same place. Okay, so this was about the function, how to create the function. We will use some coding example how to do. Suppose if I am just taking some example. Okay, if you are just creating a list, suppose 1 comma 2 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma you are just taking 4 comma 5. Suppose you are just taking, you want to create a function that will return the sum of all the values inside the list. You have to create a function that will just take a list and it will just return all the values, the sum of all the value inside the list. That is your question. Then how you are just creating a function? You have to just create a function that is sum of list. I'm just writing random, and it will take the one argument that is a list. It will take, suppose x is any value can just pass. Okay, so whenever you are going to call, so at the time you are going to write sum of list as a, because a value you are just passing as 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, if you are just passing as x, you have to write everywhere x. So first of all you are just passing as x is a list. Clear? So what you are going to, you are to iterate all the value inside this. For I in, what you are going to iterate through a, means you want every values one at a time, and you want to plus one. Then after you are just getting 1 plus 2, then what 3, then 3 plus 3, then 4, then after 3 plus 6 plus 4, and then after you are getting 10 plus 5. Okay, this way you can just do. Then what you are just writing, first of all you have to initialize something. You have to initialize the sum as 0. You can give any number, it's not compulsory you have to give. This is the variable name. I'm just writing sum. You are just initializing before running this loop. You are just initialize that sum as is 0. Okay, then what you are just writing here, sum equal to sum plus I. That's it. Means for the first time you are just initializing sum as a 0. Then the first time I value will be the 1. Then 1 plus 0 will be 1. Now sum will become 1. Okay. Now again you are just looping and you are just taking 2. Now 2 I value will become 2 and sum will become 1. Then 2 plus 1 3. Then now sum become 3. Then again the looping, it comes 3. 3 plus 3 6. It goes on. Okay. And then after you are just going out of the loop and you are just returning this sum. Okay, you are just returning this sum. What will be the answer for that? Now you can just call, this particular function, particular function that is a sum list, and then after you are just passing the parameter that is a. Let's see what will be the answer. You are getting as answer of 15. That is the correct answer. So we will do many problem statement in the coming video. So which particular question they are just asked by any, or whenever you're going for the Python interview, we will just have the at least 20 30 or 40 total number of question that I will just create the video for that, so you are able to prepare for the interview also for the function. This was about the function, this simple event about the function. Now in the next video we are going to see more about the argument and keywords argument in this particular function. Okay, so that's all for this video. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel. Thank you.